Raren, buddy, I know how much you loved Tier Elements and how that was the most broken thing you've probably ever seen when it comes to card games. Would you like to see the deck that they made the set after to combat Tier Element to give you a shot?
Wait, so hold on. Was this pre-nerf or after nerf though?
So they hit some cards in the deck, and then the next set released new cards that were basically, I think, intended to be the counter to Tier Element, because I think they knew it was very good, and they had to make a deck that sort of was like the counter to the deck, if you will.
No, I'm excited.
Okay. All right.
All
right, let's see what you got. Here is your first card.
Wait, am I doing the classic? Was this banned, limited, or left alone? Or
yeah, you're gonna do. I'll even make it easier for you. You don't even have to say. You can say if you want to be specific. I'll even just let you say if it got hit in any capacity. So like literally 50-50 in that case. So you don't have to be specific this time.
Okay, so can I ask one more question?
Sure.
So there's Tier Element, which was Tier S. After nerf, it was what, Tier 1 or still Tier S?
Still probably Tier 1 bordering on Tier S.
Okay, so then this is, I have to ask these questions because now this goes into Konami's balancing philosophy, if they have one. Why would they nerf? Why would they nerf the second best deck if Tier Elements was still that good? So I'm assuming that this deck was also Tier S.
I will let you know after Tier Element got hit into the sun. This deck was the boogeyman of the format, and I will say, as a disclaimer, this deck is way less fun comparatively because they had to do a lot of stuff to try to, like, combat how good Tier Element was. So you're gonna see, I don't want to give it away, but you're gonna, like, understand as you read these cards that these are, like, almost targeted to, like, defeat that deck, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I gotta remind myself what Tier Element was doing. Tier Element was playing on my opponent's turn and had a ton of redundancy.
Yep.
And they set up a board that was just like, you lost if they went first.
And they were very notably, they were a graveyard-centric deck. So they really cared about the graveyard and stuff going to the graveyard, and it'll be very apparent how this deck functions to combat that. So I sent you your first card.
Okay.
To read.
Kashtira.
There we go. You got it. That is the name of the archetype. So all the cards will probably have Kashtira in the name.
Okay. Let me. Fenrir.
Yep.
Okay. All right. First and foremost, they look badass.
Fenrir looks sick. Yeah, people love Fenrir for sure.
If you control no monsters, you can special summon this card from your hand. You can only use each of the following effects of this card once per turn. So that's a hard lock.
That is a hard lock. Hard once per turn. Okay. Correct.
Okay. During your main phase, you can add one Kashtira monster from your deck to your hand. Okay. And this card declares an attack, or if your opponent activates a monster effect, except during the damage step, you can target one face-up card your opponent controls, banish it face down. Okay, so banishing means it doesn't get sent to the graveyard.
Banishing is like exiling in Magic the Gathering, yes. So anything that would trigger in the graveyard does not trigger if it's banished.
If you control no monsters, you can special summon this card. You can only do that effect on your turn, right?
Correct. There's no quick effect.
Okay. So you're playing this. Okay. So if Tier Element still goes first, and it's the form I remember it would have still absolutely thrashed this deck, or at least for this card. So you need to have this on board preemptively, and then you can add a card to your hand from your deck, which is good because you can draw a card. But then more importantly, probably the banishing. So you're saying this is the counter, so they're specifically targeting the graveyard.
Well, I mean, it's in the sense of, like, sort of, right? Because it's like he doesn't interact with the graveyard, but he prevents stuff from going to the graveyard, right?
Yeah. Okay. Like pseudo interacting with the graveyard.
Yeah. Exactly. Right. It's playing around the graveyard, if you will.
Okay. So I mean, this card's, it's good. Like it's tough. Again, this is going to be one of those things where I'm going to have to go through the whole deck and actually see the picture. It's hard to give you like anything on this card.
Okay. But you think this is just a good card generally?
Seems good. Yeah, it seems fun. Okay. You don't. Yeah, it's especially because you can special summon it.
Okay. So I guess then I'll just show you cards and you can. But you don't think this was worthy of getting hit?
This is gonna be like the spy thing we did. I feel like.
Yeah, it's gonna be. Do you need to see more context? You need more context? Okay, we'll give you more context. Sure. All right, here's your next one. But so far, you think Fenrir is fine?
It's a good card. Yeah, that's fine. Oh my god, the unicorn! Holy shit. Okay. Control no monsters. You can special summon this card. Okay, so there's like a self-balancing act here, at least from what I can see, that you need to have no monsters. So you can't just play both of these. Unless you could, I guess, like actual sacrifice.
We'll see about that. We'll see about that.
Okay. You can only use one. Okay, so it's another hard lock on this card, the unicorn. During your main phase, you can add one Kashtira spell from your deck to your hand. Okay, so rather than a monster, you're getting a spell now. When this card declares an attack, or if your opponent activates a monster factor, except during the damage tab, you can look at your opponent's extra deck, and if you do, banish one monster from it. Now, it says face down. Does that mean your opponent doesn't know what you banished?
No. I mean, so they'll be able to discern what they banished just looking at their extra deck, and they're like, oh, this card that I only play one of is missing. And you can look at your face down banished cards. However, banishing face down is very important compared to banishing face up because it is very difficult. There are very few cards in the game that interact with face down banished cards. That's like exiling on top of exiling, right? If a card is banished face up, it is a lot easier to interact with because it's still kind of like an active card. So for instance, if there's a card that says, if this card is banished, special summon this card. If it's banished face up, that effect would apply. But if it's banished face down, it wouldn't. So this is a very like unique Yu-Gi-Oh type thing.
When you banish, this is actually more of like a semantics, I guess. When you banish a card from the extra deck, regardless if it's face up or face down, the effect would still proc if you banish it from the deck, even though it's not in play.
If it has an effect that would proc, yes, but Kashtira Unicorn obviously banishes it face down. So if it's like a different type of card, then that could potentially apply.
That is so weird.
Isn't it?
So weird.
Isn't it?
I feel like every other card game, in order to get like the exile effect or whatever, like it would have to be on board, or I guess you'd have to have another card that actually does it. Like that's so interesting. Like Hearthstone does it like the death rattle or whatever, like wouldn't proc it ever. Unless you had another card that said like draw a card and proc its death rattle. Like that's super interesting. Okay. Again, this is obviously good. I think this one might be better because I guess banishing the card preemptively might be better. But again, it's really tough to know how good that really is without seeing like what I'm building towards. So far, this just feels like a bunch of removal.
Okay.
And I guess it's just stacked on a body.
Okay.
Okay.
That's fine. We'll move on to the next one then in that case.
Next card? Yeah. Okay. Control no monsters. You could special summon this card from your hand. You can only use the follow. Okay, so they all have the same first two lines of text basically. During your main phase, you can add one Kashtira trap from your deck to your hand. This card declares an attack, or if your opponent activates a monster effect, except during the damage step, you can excavate up to the top. Okay, remind me what excavate does.
Excavate's like it's kind of like scrying, but both players get to see the cards. So basically, you would reveal the top up to 5 cards of the opponent's deck in this case.
Oh shit! Okay, you can excavate up to 5 cards on the top of your opponent's deck, banish one excavated card face down, and place the rest on the top of the deck in the same order. Is there any reason you wouldn't want to look all the way up to 5 cards?
I see. That's something I don't understand with this card because I can't see a reason you'd never want to always do 5 unless they like literally have less than 5 cards in the deck. I don't know why they do up to 5. It's such a weird effect in that regard.
Yeah, I was gonna say because like I feel like in Yu-Gi-Oh especially,
I have never used this card for less than 5, if for context.
Okay. So you banish one excavated card face down and place the rest of the deck on the top. Okay, so you basically get to see 5 cards. You know what they're not gonna draw, and then you also got rid of one specifically. That's really okay. So you're basically all 3 of these cards are covering different bases, and they're also giving you a specific card from your deck. So they also cover themselves, and you get a form of removal. What's the win condition? Just like
we'll get to it. We'll get to it. You'll see soon enough.
If you had to ask me which one's the best one out of all of these, just to give you something, like I'd say probably the Ogre, because like if you've told me anything, like looking at your opponent's deck is disgusting, and then you also got to pick a card to banish, so you're getting information and removal in one card.
Yep, and you're potentially manipulating their draw, because if you banish, like if you look at the top 5 and you banish the first card, then the second card is going to be what they draw for their turn, right? So you're potentially manipulating the draw. It may not always be the case, but you are potentially manipulating it. All right.
Ogre seems like the best one though.
Okay, Ogre seems like the best one so far. All right, but nothing seems hit worthy yet in your mind.
I have to see what we're building.
Yeah, we're getting there. We're getting there. Here's your next one. All
right, the Arise-Heart. If you control a Kashtira monster, you can special this card from your hand. Also, you cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck from the rest of this turn, except XYZ monsters. Okay, great. During your main phase, if this card was normal or special summon this turn, you could banish one Kashtira card from your deck, except this. Banish the top 3 cards of your opponent's deck face down, and if you banish any, this card's level becomes 7. Don't use this effect once per turn.
So, I'll give you a bit of a hint. Yeah, that is a hard once per turn. This whole deck revolves around rank 7 Xyz monsters, the black cards, and you'll be seeing a few of those shortly. In terms of if you wanted the payoff, I need to show you, the stuff leading up to the payoff, Raren. We got to get there.
During your main phase, this is normal, especially when you get banished. Okay, like isn't that kind of fucked up? Banish top 3 cards of your. So like you either go Ogre first to see what's in the top of your deck, their deck, and then you could save this card after they draw like whatever how many cards to get 3 different cards, or you could just use it immediately to kind of just ruin their entire game plan. Because I can't remember. It's been a bit. Tearlaments had a lot of redundancy to get the cards you needed, but like they didn't run a ton of like the actual like win cons, did they? Or am I forgetting?
Yeah, the win cons like, for the most part are like in the extra deck, right? So like if you're banishing the ways for them to get to the extra deck monsters, because remember you had to send the monsters to the graveyard for them to fusion summon. So if you're banishing all those monsters, now all of a sudden they have way fewer ways to actually perform the fusion summons.
Okay, so you're basically getting rid of the resources to get to their win condition with what you're doing here.
Sure.
You're not hitting the extra deck, so all they need is still like the one. Also, like this is nice, but I mean, unless you're going first, you're not really stopping anything here. Like you could just be the game's done.
Let's give you. You wanted a win con. Let's show you a potential win con here.
I need to see like. I think before I even read the next card, like here, this is what I'm thinking. It's like a bunch of removal. Like I'm playing Control Warrior in Hearthstone, right? I'm just removing their board. At some point, I'm gonna have to win the game, other than like maybe controlling. I don't know how.
Give this card a read. Maybe your mind will change.
Okay. Shangri-Ira? Shangri-Ira.
Yeah.
Okay. What the fuck is this? Jesus.
It's like a death laser.
During your each standby phase, you can special summon 1 Kashtira monster from your deck. Okay, that's already great. This is 2 plus level 7 monsters, I should say that.
Right, and everything I've shown you is a level 7, and Arise-Heart can go to level 7, so this is not hard to get into.
Okay, yeah, I just gotta double check. Okay, so you've already shown me 4 monsters. Okay. You can only use the previous effect of Kashtira Shangri-Ira once per turn. Each time a card/cards your opponent owns and possesses is banished face down, except during the damage step, you could choose 1 unused main monster zone or spell and trap zone. It cannot be used while this monster is face up on the field. If this card on the field would be destroyed by battle or card effect, you could detach 1 material from this card instead. Rather than winning the game, you're stopping your opponent to play the game at the highest level here.
Pretty much.
Play their cards.
Pretty much. Isn't that great? Isn't that fun?
You're just saying fuck you to your opponent?
Yeah, literally.
So in Hearthstone, the only time we've really seen board manipulation or board space manipulation is from Reno Lone Ranger.
Okay, what is that card?
That is an 8 mana card. It's a hero card. What it used to do is it used to come into the like onto the board. It'd wipe all your opponent's monsters, and they're left with 1 space for that turn only. And then when it went back to your turn, they got all their spaces back. What that did was, it not only did you wipe their board, but you also basically stopped them from developing a board again. Because you wasted, I'm saying wasted, but you spent all 8 mana wiping their board to begin with. So you didn't want them to develop again. People hated that effect. And in fact, it was very good. It was a super, super powerful effect. And it often just won the game on the spot if you had Reno.
And we can do it on turn 1.
Oh my God. Okay, so if you're going first now, you stop your opponent from playing the game. And therefore, you probably just win because they can't get to their win condition.
Uh-huh.
If you are going, but if you're going second though, aren't you still fucked? Like I feel like
you haven't seen the rest of the cards yet, buddy. You haven't seen the rest of the cards yet.
No, it's just I'm just trying to remember. I wish maybe what we should have done for this video is like a quick recap of what Tearlaments did. But like you can tell me if I'm wrong. Like I remember you showing me like you just get this card in your opening hand, the game's over. Like they just set up a board that's just unwinnable, and even if you get to turn 2, they start playing on your turn again. So it's like. Remembering that, maybe I'm remembering it wrong, but I remember that was kind of the gist of the entire archetype and why it was so good. This doesn't stop my opponent from doing that. That kind of just, they still get away with it. They're going first. So going second, you feel like you're still at a huge disadvantage. Okay. Now that being said, if I am going first,
would you like a card for going second to help you out?
Okay, we'll come back to. Okay, we'll come back to that in a second. Dimension Shifter. You have no cards in your graveyard. Quick effect. You could send this card from your hand to the graveyard until the end of the next turn. Any cards in the graveyard is banished instead. Oh. Well, that's pretty good. You don't even need that specifically for this archetype.
You don't.
That's just a
they
good
played
card.
it, but you don't.
Wait, how come that card's not played? Isn't this card nuts? I feel like going second, like this is like...
You tell me.
That has to be banned. No, like that's so fucked.
Okay,
like,
you think this card's banned? You think this card's
banned?
banned? Okay. Shifter is part of your evaluation here because obviously Kashtira is the archetype, but they do play other supplemental cards. So Shifter is part of your evaluation here.
Wait, that's actually so ruthless. So your opponent would try to put stuff in their graveyard, and then you would activate this.
You would so it depends. You could activate it literally as soon as you have initiative. So you can even activate this like in the standby phase before they even have the chance to play a card. Because some cards might say for cost, hypothetically, like discard a card or mill cards to the graveyard. And the cost happens before your opponent has any opportunity to interact with you. So in most instances with Dimension Shifter, you'd want to fire it immediately so that way nothing can touch the graveyard. Because if you let them have like, if you let them take an inch, like then they'll go a mile, right? So that you just want to fire this immediately.
Like I obviously I still have to see the rest of the archetype, but then now I'm thinking about with Max C, right? Because I remember, at least in like games I played, if my opponent Max C'd me, then I had to make a decision of like, do I want to wait till next turn to like actually go off?
Sure.
So like this actually adds like a little bit of, well, then if you're but like if you skip your first turn in this format, like you're probably lost the game. Like you kind of need to do something first turn. So is this card just an auto win?
Is it? I don't know.
Like that's such a weird, because Max C is like, that card's nasty, but it doesn't, I'm gonna say it doesn't auto win you the game, but what it does do is gives you resources to potentially just stop your opponent from winning the game, because then you get all your hand traps and stuff. This like literally turns down the archetype.
You want to know something very funny?
What's up?
If you Dimension Shifter, they cannot Max C you.
Because Max C goes in your graveyard for the effect.
So Max C has a cost that says you can send this card to the graveyard. Since you can't fulfill that cost because it would be banished, you're not allowed to activate Max C.
No, this card's fucked then. What the hell? Listen, you're telling me there's a card better than Max C? Can you ash this? Like, is this just
you can't ash it?
It's fucked. No, it's banned. No, it's fucked.
There is a card. I'll show you a quick card here. This can counter it. There's a card that is similar to this, and there's this card exactly. These are the only, I don't want to say the only two cards, but they're the two most common cards to be able to interact with this card. Give this a quick read.
Well, I do know what Call by the Grave does. I do know what
that does. Okay.
Because
for the audience, though, the audience might not know.
You're telling me Yu-Gi-Oh players don't know about Call by the Grave? No, I'm kidding. Okay, target one monster in your opponent's graveyard, banish it, and if you do, until the end of the next turn, its effects are negated, as well as the activated effects and the effects on the field of the monsters with the same original name.
Right. So for the people who are unaware, if you go activate Dimension Shifter immediately, you can chain Call by the Grave as Chain Link 2 to banish it and negate the Dimension Shifter from resolving.
What was I going to say? Oh my God, I had something online.
You're about to go off on what it sounded like was a big rant, was my guess.
Well, I was going to say, like, Maxi's probably the most played card in Yu-Gi-Oh right now.
It is at 96% actually on Master Duel, as a matter of fact.
That's... what the fuck? That's insane. If this card existed or was playable, I feel like Maxi 96%.
96%, and the best part is the next most played cards are the cards to counter Maxi.
Give me a hot second here. I'm actually just very curious to see what the most played Hearthstone card is. Hold on, let me give you an idea here.
Sure.
The most played card, I'm looking through bronze through gold games because that's probably the most amount. This is obviously just from HS Replay. It's not like from Hearthstone specifically. It is in 23% of decks.
23% of decks.
Max,
interesting.
The max I think I've seen is like 70. Ash is at like 90.
Because Ash counters Max C. That's why.
Okay, so Ash doesn't counter Dimension Shifter.
Correct, because there's no effect that's special summoning with Dimension Shifter. Yeah.
So if you don't have, is there any other playable card other than Call by the Grave that would counter Dimension Shifter?
That card at 64% right there, Crossout Designator. If you are playing a copy of Dimension Shifter in your deck, Crossout Designator reads you banish a card from your deck, and then it basically acts like Call by the Grave, where it sort of like negates the effects of the card you banish. So that is like probably the only other consistent way to stop a Dimension Shifter.
Okay, one last question. Was Dimension Shifter released with this like set?
No, interestingly enough. Dimension Shifter is a few years older. I want to say it was 3 or 4 years prior to the release of this archetype.
Okay, so then I gotta go back. I gotta ask you another question then. How come Dimension Shifter wasn't played against Tearlaments before this came out? Or was it? And then there was just no archetype that could actually beat it because that deck was so strong.
So there were a couple decks that were considered prior to Kashtira that were considered like the counter to Kashtira if you were going to try to like stun them out. And they did play Dimension Shifter.
Okay. Okay, because I was gonna say, like, if this was released in the same set with all the other cards, like, then this is like an auto ban. But now I'm like intrigued why this would. Now I don't know if this is banned. 'Cause why would you? I would feel like, especially against tier limit, like you would slow them down so much by playing this that you might, a lot of other decks would have a chance. But then again, it's like, do you really want like your game to be decided about who gets the card in their opening hand?
What a great question. You also have to remember, we only get 3 copies of a card per deck, right? So you only have a 42% chance to have this in your opening hand. So
yeah, but can you imagine? Like I'm not shitting on Yu-Gi-Oh. This isn't a shit on Yu-Gi-Oh. This is just more.
You
about
would
the balancing
never.
philosophy
You would
here.
never.
Can you imagine being like, God, I hope they just don't hit the 40%? Like, are you? What the fuck?
I am not. I have no comment. I have no comment. Welcome
Okay,
to Yu-Gi-Oh,
okay.
I guess.
Okay, sorry. Let me go back to the Shangri real fast. Okay, so now we know Shifter exists. So the way that you would go, because I could be on that rant forever. By the way,
I bet you can. I bet you can. You can keep going. That's fine.
No. I listen. In case Konami and me ever reach a mutual understanding of, you know, like, I don't know, like we're friends and like, you know, something blossoms from that. Like, I don't want to go too hard. Right?
Okay, sure.
Like, they haven't affected me personally yet. Actually, they did revoke a sponsorship, so maybe I should. I mean, we'll get back to it. Okay. I told you about that, right? I told you about how
I don't think you did actually, but that's a
They
story
wanted to
for
do-
another day, apparently.
Well, they wanted to do. I don't mind saying. I legitimately don't know if they'll ever sponsor me at this point. So I think it was for Duel Links.
Okay.
And then I released the video, like the very first one I did, talking about how like miserable an experience it was to play Yu-Gi-Oh for the first time, basically. And then my agency was like, yeah, they don't want to do it anymore.
Yeah, they probably. Yeah, that'll get you blacklisted. Yeah, that's for sure.
But I mean, I wouldn't have changed my mind anyways. But to be fair, I didn't know that was actually there until I released the video, and I was like, oh, that's really funny that they still want to do that sponsorship. But it makes a lot of sense why they would revoke it. Okay, anyways, if you have the Shifter, you play it, your opponent doesn't have Called by the Grave, and then they have to what? Does tier limits then have to just skip their first turn?
For the most part, I will say yes. There's like rare instances you can play through Dimension Shifter, but you need a very specific hand to be able to do that. This basically is a turn skip for tier. Yeah.
If they can play through the Dimension Shifter, they probably still won the game because that's insane.
No. I will say the board that you would try to set up if you get shiftered is very lackluster because you're kind of just desperate. So it is not great.
Wow, what the?
You have to remember how many cards in tier element mill, right? It was the casino that always pays out. There was like almost every card in the deck milled you for like 3 to 5 cards, if not more. And so if you can't mill to the graveyard because that's where all your stuff triggers, like what the fuck are you doing, right?
Yeah, but now you got me like legitimately, like I'm pondering like why Dimension Shifter wasn't good enough before this deck came out to stop tier limits. Like I
said, the decks that were playing it that were like, basically there was a deck called Fluanderies, which is a bunch of birds that all care about being banished and stuff. Dimension Shifter had a home in that deck, and that was considered like the anti-meta deck before Kashtira was printed. But that deck, the conversion rate was so low because if that deck didn't go first, it just fucking lost straight up. But if you can high roll and win every dice roll and go first every game, then you basically can just stop your opponent from playing the game.
Isn't Shifter used on your second turn?
You can Shifter on your own turn, and that deck actually, that's one of the few decks that benefited from their own cards getting banished. So you can Shifter on your own turn going first, and then do a bunch of stuff that like benefits your deck because the cards are getting banished, and then your opponent still has to play under Shifter on their turn. So it actually didn't hurt that deck in the slightest.
Oh, okay, sure, I see what you're saying.
So you could freely fight. Like, I understand what you're saying because...
Okay, until the end of next turn. Yeah.
Right. Because I see what you're saying because you might think that, oh, doesn't this hurt you as well? Or like you can't use this because then you would have cards in the graveyard. You would just fire Shifter as the first play of your turn and then do all your other stuff. And then they still have to play under Shifter on their turn. And then they can't, and then you just kill them.
Okay. I have to imagine this card got banned then. Like, I have to imagine. Like, there's no...
So this is the first card you think got banned out of everything I've showed you.
I mean, it's, again, like, it comes down to Konami's, like, balancing philosophy. Like, do they really want a card like this to exist? Or
balancing philosophy, sure.
Okay. Kashtira have a way to draw this in the opening hand every time?
Shifter, no.
Like,
Shifter, you have to hard draw. Okay. If you had a way to get this like at the beginning of your turn, every turn, that would be insane.
Yeah, maybe they limited it then, because like that is, I don't know, like that card is super sus. Like that is extremely weird. Okay, now let's go back to the Shangri. Sorry, I'm completely sidetracked with that bitch. That card is insane to me. Okay, so if I'm going first and I have the Shangri and I stop my opponent from playing the game, like they don't have the board space. How many board spots can I take away?
5. We have 5 main monster zones and 5 spell and trap zones. So there's 10 total.
Wait, each time a card/cards your opponent owns and possesses is banished face down. So hold on, I gotta like semantic rule this for fast. So with Arise-Heart, you're banishing 3 cards at a time.
Yep.
Or I guess during one effect. Does that mean you banish 3 spots of the board, or does that mean you banish
instance,
one? Because
if it's an instance of banishing, whether it's 1 card or 10, that's only 1 instance of a card getting banished for this effect. So you would only get rid of 1 zone. I think that's a fair question.
You can only. I'm just asking this because I need to understand how many spots you can actually ban in one turn. You can ban 2, or can you do more? Because like I guess you could. Based on what I've read so far about Kashtira, you can only basically summon 2. You can special summon 2 monsters, but then maybe you can normally play 1 that does the effect. So like maybe it's 3.
Would you like for me to show you an image to help answer your question?
Sure. Because like I don't know how many. Is that first turn?
That is the opponent's first turn. So on the Kashtira player's first turn, they iced out, I want to say, 5 of the opponent's zones. I think they iced out all the spell and trap zones. And they do that specifically because a lot of the cards that beat this deck are spell and trap cards. So if they can't play a spell or trap card, they can't out the board. Then on the opponent's turn, because if you noticed, as long as there's any instance of a card getting banished, Shangri-Ira can ice another zone. So he also iced 4 of the opponent's monster zones as well. Not to mention, something you may have missed, Shangri-Ira on the icing the zone effect is not a once per turn. So hypothetically, if you have more than 1 Shangri-Ira, which this player in this photo has, you can see that there's 2 of them. There's 1 in the center zone and there's 1 in the extra monster zone. Every time a card is getting banished, you're icing 2 zones instead of 1.
So that person just lost, right? Like there's
yep. That match lasted 7 minutes. The opponent went first, did their thing, and then iced all the zones, and the other person scooped immediately. Great game, huh? I think this is the hardest I've heard you laugh in any of the videos that we've done.
This game is so stupid. Like, it's so stupid. What are you guys doing over here?
Look how you beat Tier Element. They just can't play the game. They can't summon anything.
That's pretty funny. That is so. I'm sure Konami looked at that and said, "There's no way that's allowed. There's no way." So they have to. Like, maybe they changed it, or they. What is it? I was gonna say retcon, but it's not retcon. Errated. Yeah, maybe they made it so it's a hard once per turn.
I will let you know, it is very rare that they errata cards. This is not Hearthstone, where they do that on a weekly basis.
Okay, so they have to ban this shit then. Like, what the hell?
Okay.
Like,
so far your Dimension Shifter got hit in some capacity, and now you're thinking the Shangri-Ira also got hit.
Well, I'm just like, again, the rest of these cards are like, they're good, but they're not like, oh my god, you're breaking the game with this shit. Like, it's just good removal, and it's good to stop your opponent's win condition, which I guess is fine. Like, the back and forth is fine.
Sure.
So I guess those 2. Okay, what else does this deck have?
Okay, let's continue on. Let's show you some spell cards.
Kashtiratheosis. That sounds kind. Okay. Sorry, I'm looking at the art.
The art in this archetype is very cool. I give him credit for that.
When you do videos with CGB, do you like look at the art of Magic? I think Magic is like some of the coolest.
It's some of the coolest art. Yeah, there's so many videos of me saying, "Oh, cool art!" Like before I even read the card. Yeah, but this, I will say, they did a good job with the art with Kashtira. The art is really cool on a lot of these cards.
Okay, target 1 Kashtira monster you control. Special summon 1 Kashtira monster with a different attribute from your deck in defense position. Also, for the rest of this turn, that sounds pretty good. Okay, never mind. Also, for the rest of this turn, after this card resolves, you cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck except for XYZ monsters. If this card is banished, you can target 1 of your banished Kashtira cards, except this one, add it to your hand. You can only use the effect of this once per turn. Okay, that's a very loaded card. For 1 spell, you are summoning a monster from your deck with a different attribute.
Notably, all of the original Kashtiras that I showed you, all are different attributes.
Yeah, I was going to say. Okay, so you can... So you're getting another one. Okay, interesting. And
remember, Shangri-Ira only needs 2 level 7s.
On top of that, you can also do the the main phase effect of whatever one you're pulling, right?
Correct.
There's special summon. Okay, so you're also getting more.
And
then on
notably,
top of that-
Unicorn can search this.
Oh shit! Yeah, you're right. Okay, now Unicorn's starting to look a little better here. Hold on.
Okay.
Is there a way to find Unicorn in your opening hand? Like to get it?
Fenrir. Fenrir searches any monster, so you could Fenrir for Unicorn.
Oh yeah, you're right. Okay, but what about, is there a way to get Fenrir every single turn?
I'm gonna go with no.
Okay, so if you don't hard open it, unless you have Unicorn already in your hand, like there's no way to set up the entire chain. Like you just have to hope you end up drawing it, which is fine. But if you do get Unicorn, it's probably the best one because you'd rather have this spell, I think, over having the Fenrir in your opening hand. I mean, they're both fine, but this spell seems very good. In fact, even if if it gets banished, so if it gets destroyed, it doesn't do anything. But if it gets banished, target one of your banished Kashtira monsters except for this and add it to
But
your
you can
hand.
also
So
banish
get
it
back
from the
from
graveyard itself, right? It doesn't have to be banished from the field.
You need another card to banish it from the graveyard.
Yeah,
though.
yeah.
can't
You
just be
need
like, I
another
banished
card
it.
to
Okay.
do that, yes. But that I'm just letting you know it does work if it gets banished from the graveyard as well.
Okay, so that's a very loaded card.
Very good.
That means Unicorn is a better card. You open this, it's also very good, but you need another Kashtira monster on the board. So you're basically going Unicorn into this card. Sorry, Unicorn, you're drawing this, you're playing it, you're summoning a different one, then you're putting your Shangri on the board. And if you get your Shangri on the board, then you're kind of like you're cooking hard. I'm gonna double check the wording of this. Each time a card's opponent. So because Shangri's not on the board though, I'd imagine before you sacrifice, I'm gonna call it sacrificing to some of the XYZ. I'm assuming that's what you actually do. You use the individual effects of every other Kashtira monster, right? Like you would use Unicorn's effect, which means that the Shangri doesn't retroactively banish a board spot, right?
Correct. So if Shangri-Ira is not on the board, it's not like, yeah, it's not going to banish stuff unless it sees its stuff that gets banished. Yeah.
So does that mean you need another card to do that? Because now I'm trying to think about how you actually would banish a spot if you've already used I'm assuming you'd use the Unicorn, you'd summon a different one.
Yeah, we'll get
then
there.
You also want to get your... Okay. So there is a way for you to continue.
There might be other ways.
Okay.
There might be other ways.
Okay. Good card. Very good card. If you can find it, that's a very good card.
How about another spell?
Birth. Can normal summon level... Oh, God. You can normal summon level summon monsters without tributing. During your main... What? During your main phase, you could special summon one of your non-XYZ Kashtira monsters that is banished during your graveyard. I'm sorry. So you could do that. You could do both of those in the same turn you play it?
Yep.
Your opponent activates a spell card or effect and you control a Kashtira monster. You can target 3 cards in your opponent's graveyard, banish them face down. You can only use the... I mean, you only need it once per turn, dude. That is...
Cool card, huh?
That's... What? that seems kind of broken though.
So now you can special summon a Kashtira with its effect. You can play Birth, and then you can just normal summon one of the other big guys, and you have 2 level 7s. Isn't that fun?
That's great. No, but you could also get the Theosis. Summon your Shangri, then play Birth. And then you get to actually use the effect. You get 2 banishes. And then, all right, now I can see where we're cooking here. Basically, what I'm reading here at the moment is you go first. You probably...
Sorry, before you go off, Unicorn can also search this because this is another Kashtira spell. Just stay.
That is true. You're not wrong.
What you were going to say, though. Go ahead. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you.
I was going to say, going first, it seems like you absolutely roll them, like whatever deck you're going up against.
And we haven't gotten to the best part, buddy.
Okay, there's still more. Okay. Especially if you get the Shangri. But I still feel like going second, like if you don't get the shifter, like you're kind of just fucked.
Okay.
I know there's the classic like saying like you just winning the game of Yu-Gi-Oh just going first, but like I am waiting for something to defend myself if I end up going second, other than the shifter.
Let's show you a trap card. Remember, Ogre can search trap cards.
Preparations. During either player's turn, you could special summon one of your Kashtira monsters that is banished or in your hand. Your banish pile ends up being another resource, which is kind of interesting here. It's been like, this might be the first time you've shown me a card like that, or like an archetype that really uses it. If your opponent activates a trap or effect, if your opponent activates a trap card or effect, you control a Kashtira monster, and this card is already face up in your spell and trap zone. You look at your opponent's hand, and if you do, banish 1 card from it face down. Oh. You can only use the effect of this once per turn.
Keep in mind, this is a continuous trap, so this stays active until something interacts with it.
See, like that is just, we're really just kicking them over and over again here. But again, like going second, like you're still kind of in a weird spot because you can't activate this you have to place this down first before you do a trap card. Like, cool. Like, I mean, you're just adding like, man, if you're going first, I'm probably just conceding. But how do we get past going second? Like I'm missing something here.
Okay. Here's your next card.
If a Kashtira XYZ monster is on the field and a player controls 2 or more monsters, they must banish monsters they control face down. So they only control 1 monster. Okay. If this card is banished, you can target 1 Kashtira XYZ monster you control. Add 1 of your Kashtira monsters attached to it to your hand. Then you can special summon that monster from your hand. You can only use the effect of this once per turn. If a player controls 2 or more monsters, they must banish monsters they control. So banishing monsters is good for you. That's also, that means it interacts with your Shangri-Ira, right?
Mm-hmm. Because stuff would get banished. That's correct.
I gotta just double check it's not just your opponent's monsters getting banished. It also works for you.
It's anytime a card your opponent owns and possesses is banished face down.
Okay, so you're basically hoping that this affects your opponent over yourself then. Okay. This card is banished. Okay. Okay. I mean, that just making your Shangri a lot better, but you're also getting an additional resource. And then if you could special summon another Kashtira, it's like even more redundancy for making your opponent's life miserable. Okay, I could see it. I like preparations more, but I could see it being good.
Let's get to the fun stuff.
Okay, that's not the fun stuff. All right, what is this? Holy shit! Number 89, Diablosis, the Mind Hacker. What? Okay, 2 level 7 monsters, which we already know we can do. Once per turn, you can detach 1 material from this card. Look at your opponent's extra card deck. Oh my god, extra card deck. Extra deck can banish 1 monster from it face down. Okay. Oh my god. At the end of the battle phase, if the card destroyed a monster by battle, you can target 1 card in your opponent's graveyard, banish it face down. If a card your opponent owns and possesses is banished face down, well, you control this card, except during the damage step. You can banish cards from the top of your opponent's deck face down equal to their face down banished cards. Oh, so it gets stronger and stronger the more you do this.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to win by battle. You have to do it by battle.
No, that's a separate effect.
At the end of your at the end of your battle phase, if the card destroyed a monster by battle, you can target 1 card from your opponent's graveyard, banish it face down. Okay, so
that's effect. That's one effect. Yep. Then
if a card your opponent owns, banish. Okay, that's if you're. Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. When I read that, I thought that was like the one.
No, it's separate effects. It's separate effects.
That makes it a lot better.
So that is the gift that keeps on giving.
Uh-huh.
Wouldn't you rather have this guy than Shangri?
Why not both?
You're so right. my brain's too small. Why am I not thinking both?
But again, like if you're going first, like you're already destroying this person. How are you? Like you got to show me the cards where you're going second. Like I have to see how you defend yourself if something happens here.
I mean, I've shown you cards for going. I showed you Fenrir. Fenrir is like a great going second card.
You would. I guess you could just target 1 card your opponent controls, but then that's like the one effect you can use for it, right? And then you're just cooked.
That's fine. If you think so, that's fine. That's fine.
Okay, hold on. I'm not seeing the whole vision here. I'm missing something.
Here's your last card.
There has to be something. This is 8? Okay, so this is the guy. Arise-Heart. Jesus Christ, that guy looks like he's about to destroy everything.
Yeah, just wait till you read the effects.
3 level. Okay, this is 3 level 7 monsters. Okay, once per turn, you can also. Okay, you can also XYZ summon.
Or is it 3 at all?
Using 1 Kashtira monster you control. If an effect of Shangri-Ira was successfully activated this turn, transfer its materials to this card. Any card sent to the graveyard is banished instead. Once per chain, each time a card is banished, attach 1 banished card to this card's as material. Once per turn, quick effect. You could detach 3 materials from this card, then target 1 card in the field and banish it face down. Using 1 Kashtira monster control with an effect of the Shangri-Ira. Okay, so not only are you getting rid of their board spots, but you're also making it so that you can just banish their cards infinitely.
Yep, it's basically infinite dimension shifter while it's out on the field.
Once per turn means that you can only, okay, you can still only do this once per turn unless I'm reading this wrong, right? Once per chain.
So let me break it down for you. So it says 3 level 7 monsters. However, if you have any Kashtira monster, you can just slap this guy out on the field, assuming you've already activated Shangri-Ira previously in the turn. Okay, so that's part 1. So you don't even need 3 monsters. You just need 1, technically speaking. So he's even easier to summon than you think. Part 2, any card sent to the graveyard is banished instead. So as long as he's out, he's infinite dimension shifter. So everything's going to get banished. Then, if that weren't enough, once per chain, anytime a card is banished, which obviously is not hard to do in this deck, you get to attach a banished card to him as material. Then, if that weren't enough, once per turn, as a quick effect, you can detach 3 materials from him, which it's not hard for you to get, and then just pop a card and banish it face down. Which then triggers the effects of your other Kashtira cards as well, because you're banishing something face down.
Okay, so this is like slam dunking your opponent, and they just can't come back from it.
I will let you know when we get to the end, and I reveal everything.
This is every card you're showing me?
This is everything I'm showing you. Yep.
Hold on, I'm just scrolling back up to see if I'm missing it. Dude, I'm gonna be honest. I still feel like this is like infinitely worse than Tearlaments. Like I feel like maybe I'm just, you're gonna obviously tell it to me, and then I'm gonna have the moment where I go like, oh, I didn't understand that.
Something you may have missed, you know, our favorite phrase.
No, there's definitely something I'm missing. I feel, okay, so that means there's a lot of cards that interact with Shangri-Ira, which means like, why would they want to ban the card?
Because the photo I sent you, that could be a reason they want to ban the card.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. You know what? You were so right. You were so right.
Hey, come play Yu-Gi-Oh! Doesn't this look fun? Doesn't this look great? You can't actually play the game. Fun.
Yeah, you're right. No, you're right though. If Hearthstone did this, there'd be so many issues. Like one card gets milled and people are molding. Like your board getting taken away is like Jesus.
And you see what we have to deal with.
No, I'm glad. I would hope the designers of Hearthstone and Magic look at your game and go, "Okay, guys,
this is what we don't do."
No, exactly. It might be a template of just like bad decisions. What do I think is like you just said touched in general?
Yeah, so I'll make it easy for you. You can just pick cards you think got hit. So I won't tell you if they got banned or limited or semi-limited. I'm going to group them all together, and you can tell me if you think any of them got hit.
Okay, I think Theosis is a broken card. So I think that one got hit. That also means that Unicorn can stay like alive and be okay with getting Birth. Like I think that'd be fine. But then maybe you want to hit the Unicorn still, because Birth is actually still a really good card. But hold on, I think Theosis is like disgusting. I'm like very confident Dimensional Shifter got touched. Like that card just seems stupid.
Okay, so Theosis and Shifter so far is where you're at.
Riseheart's also really good. What's the one that lets me look at my opponent's like top cards? Is it
that's Ogre?
That card seems that effect just seems like nonsense too. I'd be really that one's tilted me, and I'm not even playing against it. But I mean, does it really matter if like I gotta go against the board that you just showed me? Probably not. Like I'm probably losing the game anyways. Okay, what about the XYZ monsters, which seems to be a bigger problem? Mind Hacker. Your opponent's extra deck can banish one card from it face down.
Oh, you know what? I actually forgot to show you a card. Now that I think about it. Here we go.
Oh. Okay, hold on.
It's because it doesn't have the Kashtira text on it, so I overlooked it. I'm sorry.
That's fine. No, you're good. Pressured Planet Wraitsoth. When this card is activated, you can add one Kashtira monster from your deck to your hand. Monster you control gain. Man, you know, like Hearthstone recently more than ever, I feel like Hearthstone's biggest concern going into the future is how consistent you are drawing the cards you actually need to win games. Like I think that's one of the fundamental differences between newer Hearthstone and older Hearthstone. And some people may argue what that does is make the game worse, because you feel like the game kind of plays out the same way almost every single time.
Sure.
It's a pro and con. I feel like Yu-Gi-Oh just does that every single time, and that's maybe one of the biggest problems they have, because why do we need so much redundancy in our game?
So
like, do we really need
my defense of that is that I think that's one of Yu-Gi-Oh's strengths, is that most of the time decks are consistent enough that they're going to be able to always execute their game plan. And as a result of that, you're taking a lot of variance out of the game, which is like what is something that people hate about card games. So your deck is always doing the thing. And so then it's like, can you do your thing better than the opponent does their thing, right? Or it's like both of you have these really high power consistent decks that do, you know, maybe a linear game plan, or maybe they have the ability to pivot in certain situations. However, it's like, can you, like, knowing you can do your thing and your opponent can do their thing, can you just like outmaneuver them essentially? And I think that's like, that plays to Yu-Gi-Oh's strength and why people like it so much.
Okay, so you're saying it's like a intentional design decision.
I think so.
That they thought of.
I think so. And it wasn't always like this. It definitely was more like a traditional card game earlier on, when you were kind of just playing good stuff piles of like the best cards in the game at any given time. Like I'm talking about like old school Yu-Gi-Oh specifically. There was definitely a pivot at some point when they started to print cards like, you know, this and a lot of stuff you've seen that made the decks ultra consistent, that you're always getting to do the thing that you want to do. So there was a design decision at some point where that shifted for sure. You didn't even finish reading the card.
I know. It made me think of it because in Hearthstone, even with rotation, like you guys don't have the rotation. Like we're seeing it like at I wouldn't say maybe at the strongest it's ever been, but definitely at like really high potential of like how likely you are to draw your win conditions.
But again, if your opponent can also do that, right? So it's like it kind of evens out in like a weird. Did you ever play Call of Duty?
Yes.
Okay.
Talked about this.
Yeah, Modern Warfare 2 in 2009, right? It's like everything's overpowered, so it somehow balances itself out, except for like rare exceptions like Tearlament and stuff. I think that's sort of like their balance philosophy at this point. Just make everything crazy, and it somehow like balances itself out.
So maybe it doesn't work in Yu-Gi-Oh, but like I'm gonna call like Hearthstone maybe a more traditional card game.
Sure, which I think
one of the problems of doing that is that you kind of just strip away what mid-range is as an archetype. Like it's harder to play mid-range now in Hearthstone because games end so much faster.
Sure.
Because like now it's like in classic Hearthstone when Freeze Mage was like a really popular deck. Freeze Mage had to play extremely slow and you had to really calculate how much risk you could do in order to draw cards because you needed to find your combo as soon as possible, right?
Okay.
But because draw wasn't as consistent, it allowed other decks to breathe and have more time to actually like be powerful in the moment they're supposed to be, rather than like, oh, turn 7, I have my win condition, the game's over. So that's one of the reasons why in Hearthstone, it doesn't play as well as it probably does in Yu-Gi-Oh! But also like, I'm shocked because you guys have every one of these cards to ever exist except for the one that are banned or limited, whatever. So like, even without printing this much redundancy, it's interesting like how many cards to support an archetype they need for an archetype to actually be playable at the highest level. Like this is, if Hearthstone printed an effect like this, where every single card they released as a package and an expansion supported an archetype like this, it would be insane. Like nothing else would be able to touch that archetype. But then maybe it plays better in Yu-Gi-Oh as well because you guys also complain to your opponent's turn. Like it's a lot of like, Interesting. Sorry, it just made me.
No. Like, so as an example, when they started making more archetype-centric decks and we're moving away from like good stuff piles, you would actually see that. So like Blackwings is a great example of this back in the day. The Blackwing archetype had like a built-in search spell that like you'd never seen before in like another archetype that was continuous. So every time you played a Blackwing, you add another Blackwing to your hand. And because of that, it was one of the best decks for its time because there was no other deck that had this level of consistency that it was able to like every time you play a monster, it just replaces itself basically. No other deck had the ability to do that. So like I think you started to see the pivot around that point where decks became more archetypical and it's like, okay, you're gonna play a lot of good stuff together that's like in the specific archetype that's all super redundant, but then you're playing against your opponent that's also playing a good stuff archetype that's super redundant as well. So it's like, how well can you deploy your cards to like beat your opponent at that point? And so I always like to say Yu-Gi-Oh is like the Marvel vs. Capcom 3 or like the fighting game of card games. And I think that just plays to its strength, to be honest. Because Yu-Gi-Oh, if there's anything you can say about Yu-Gi-Oh, it's the card game that lets you do what no other card game lets you do. And that is just like go the fuck off as soon as the game starts.
I guess it's fair. I don't know. It's from an outsider's perspective, it's like, holy fuck. Like,
no, and that's why Yu-Gi-Oh has like a new player problem because it's so overwhelming, which is why I like to liken it to a fighting game because people want to get into like Street Fighter or Tekken or whatever, and they don't even know how to throw like a fireball, right? And then like they're just going to get bodied because there's like a deficiency in their ability to actually like execute combos. Yu-Gi-Oh is very similar where it's like before you even pick up a deck, you have to look up the combo tutorials on like how to do all these certain things. It's not like Hearthstone or Magic or any of these other card games where you can just pick up a deck and be like, okay, this card costs like 4 mana. I can play a 4 mana card, right? I think that's one of the biggest for all the strengths, that's like at the cost of like the new player experience of getting more people into the game. But if there's card game players that are looking for something that's, you know, more, as an example, like they hate playing with mana because they feel like it's a restricting mechanic, they can come to Yu-Gi-Oh because we don't have mana, right? So it's definitely a trade-off for sure. And I don't think it's necessarily a good trade-off, but it's pros and cons at the end of the day. Anyway, you didn't finish reading this card and it's been like 10 minutes.
Yeah. Sorry, it's just okay, sorry. Okay, sorry. Let's start at the beginning. This card is activated. You can add 1 Kashtira monster from your deck to your hand. Monsters you control gain 100 attack/defense for each different attribute on the field. If a Kashtira Shangri-Ira you control activates an effect, except during the damage, you can target 1 card on the field, destroy it. You can also use the effect of this. This is what this card's called. Hold on, sorry, you guys zoom in. Okay, of this once per turn, you can only activate this. You can only activate 1. Okay, 1 per turn. So
yeah. So it sounds redundant, but like so with field spells, you can play a field spell over another field spell. So they're saying you can't do that like twice in a turn.
I mean, pretty great. Like I don't figure like that's good. It's so more redundancy. Allows you to get your combo going, your chain going. Like, obviously, it's just good.
So far, you're at Theosis band and Shifter band. That's where you're at.
Yeah, remind me, you get 40 cards.
40 card deck. You start with 5 in hand. If you go first, you don't draw. If you go second, you draw 6. Or you draw 2/6, I should say.
That's insane. That's actually so wild to think
I like
about.
you say that and you have 30 cards in your game.
No, but that, see, like, that's kind of the, I'm a Hearthstone boomer. And that was kind of the thing I was saying when it comes to like what the game has become, is that if you're not somebody who wants to just play for your win condition every single game, it takes away from the experience that in my opinion, what Hearthstone was made from, which is like shitty mini like Yetis hitting against Yetis. And there's a lot more like interactive moments between each turn, because like now it's more progressive, incremental, like powerfulness throughout your mana costs, rather than just, hey, I hit 6 mana and you're fucked. Like that's the difference here, right? Like even though it's 30 cards, and I understand you, like our deck is theoretically more consistent because of the amount of cards we need in our deck. But when you have every card draw in the world and you also don't have a mana cost, I don't think it matters what the size of my deck is if I'm just drawing the cards.
Isn't it great that all this shit's legal, but Pot of Greed is banned?
It is pretty funny. It is pretty funny.
It
Yeah,
is.
but I think they like they're I mean, I was gonna say like there's probably an argument against having a card played in so many different decks, but then Maxi is 96%. So it's like, what am I even fucking talking
Yeah,
about? Like,
we don't talk about that.
that's so weird. And I'm assuming like the problem they probably have too is like, even if Pot of Greed was unbanned, they would still run Maxi and Pot of Greed in probably every single deck, because it's just more
100%.
redundancy to find the cards.
Yeah,
you want.
exactly.
So it's like,
yeah, that's why they can't unban Pot of Greed. It's literally a free 2 cards for no downside.
yeah, so that's like insane. Hearthstone's they're getting a little closer to that. It's actually getting kind of wild.
Yeah, wait till you
I
start
wonder
getting
if
cards
it
that
has-
search cards, then you know it's over.
I'm waiting for the day where Hearthstone releases a 0 mana draw one. Well, they kind of had already, to be honest with you. So it's like we're really close to just, yeah. Hearthstone has a card called Aquatic Form for Druid. It's 0 mana. You dredge, and if you have the amount of mana to spend on the card, you draw that card, which is basically like 0 mana draw a card for Druid. Which is obviously one of the best Druid cards they've ever released. But we're getting to the point, maybe because they're kind of lowering the power level a little bit, that we may not get to the point where it's a 0 mana draw card without any restrictions, but we're getting there. It's getting a little spicy. Okay, so sorry, I said sorry, I'm going so sidetracked today. Shifter, people like the side tangent content.
They do like it. They do like it.
So,
yeah, exactly. And it's good for ad revenue too. So thank you.
Yeah, you're right. Look how we all think like that. The watch time goes up, baby. Okay. Shifter, I think, was touched. I think that card's stupid. I could see Shangri getting touched as well, because I think the overall just play pattern is kind of egregious.
Okay.
Like, I don't think you want a card game where like you stop your opponent from playing the game outright. Like, that just sounds stupid.
Interesting.
I don't know if a Rise would be. See, like when I read a Rise, by the way, like I didn't realize that like it actually counted the Shangri when it was not in play. Like, I think that's actually extremely interesting, because that's one of those things where it's like, if it's not on the board, how does it retroactively get affected by this? It's like extremely interesting design. That card's a lot better than it probably looks like. Well, you explained it to me, obviously, that it's better than it looks like. But is that banned, or is it just Shangri that needs to be touched? Maybe they like limited Shangri, but even then, like limiting in your we had this conversation last time. I'm having like deja vu here. Like the extra deck is so like ridiculous. Like how do you? So hard to deal with it, because you either have to like fully ban all of them, or you only have or you have to nerf it significantly, which they don't do. So Shangri makes me think that they at least touched it, but then like even if you have one copy of it, it's still like a huge problem. Mind Hacker is also interesting. The second effect is really good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a word for it. Yeah, but I mean that's just like, I don't call it win more, but you're definitely probably already winning the game if this was allowed to stay on the board. And again, like this might be the case of just going first, so I don't know how relevant that really is. I need to like, I haven't actually had the opportunity to watch the tier limits video yet, but this one actually is more engaging to me, because I could see tier limit what it would do on both. Like I'm talking about like going second. Like I just don't think you really have a chance of winning. But I could see it like in tier limit, like where this one's like, I'd have to watch someone play this game from going second to really understand how they're playing the game.
Yeah, I mean, keep in mind, right? Like, there's still hand traps and stuff like that you have that are generic, right? So there's like your Ash Blossoms. If you're playing Master Duel, there's Maxi, right? So it's you do have other non-Kashtira cards to help like slow down the opponent if you're going second. So I mean, keep that in mind.
All right, I'll go with Ogre was also touched, because I think that card's silly. But I think in my opinion, it's Ogre, Shangri, Shifter, and Theosis. I'll go with
Okay, so final answer is Kashtiratheosis, Dimension Shifter, Shangri-Ira, and Kashtira Ogre. So let's start at the beginning. Kashtira Fenrir. This card is fucking nuts. This card can like solo a board by itself. It is so good because it has a good attack stat. It special summons itself, so it doesn't even cost your normal summon. It banishes something either when an effect is activated or when it attacks. So technically, it 2-for-1s things every single time it attacks. And if it stays around, it'll keep 2-for-1ing. And also, you can play Kashtira Fenrir going first in a very interesting way. If you start your turn by summoning Fenrir, if your opponent hand traps you at all, you now get to Fenrir, like, banish something on their field. Which is really interesting because if they have a card, for instance, because Tiamat does have a card that special summons itself from the hand on the opponent's turn, you can, like, just banish that, and now you don't have to worry about it, where in other decks, like, you would. So, Fenrir, actually, crazy enough, I believe is banned in the OCG, but it's actually never been touched here in the TCG, which is kind of, like, it's crazy to think, but a card like this, even as powerful as it is actually, like, kind of fine in our game. And I think a lot of people actually really like the design of this. It's a very good going second card as well, because if your opponent sets up a board, a lot of the, especially in the, like, tier specifically, a lot of stuff with tier is, like, not a lot of it, but a good amount of it is lower than 2,400. So Fenrir can clear that, and typically the tier element cards have to be sent to graveyard by card effect in order for their effect to activate. If Fenrir sends it to grave by battle, it doesn't trigger that. So that's a very interesting part there. But also then it just banishes shit. And so sometimes you could be playing a game, you do your combo, whatever, and your opponent goes special summon Fenrir for the first move, and you're like, fuck, because Fenrir is just like that good of a card. So many decks would play, even Tier Element would play Fenrir in the deck just because it's that good of a card. But Fenrir's always been around, and it's always been a fantastic card. I don't think it sees, like, much play nowadays, but back in the heyday, Fenrir is insane. But funny enough, we go by TCG rules here. Never got touched in the TCG. Don't know how that happened. Unicorn. Unicorn is very oppressive because it can hit stuff in the extra deck. So if you're playing against a deck that only has a limited copy of an extra deck monster, let's say, Unicorn can just snipe that out, and that could be like the centerpiece of your entire deck, and now your deck just like falls apart. So people really hate that Unicorn interacts with like the opponent's extra deck because it's just like, it's this really like unfair, unfun type of mechanic that it's like, oh, now all of a sudden your deck sucks, right? So you kind of have to like build around the fact that Unicorn is a card. But if your best extra deck monster is limited to one copy, all of a sudden Unicorn just takes it out, and now you just like, you're just fucking screwed. So very good card. And funny enough, Unicorn did get hit. It got, I don't know why, it got semi-limited for like 2 formats, and then they put it back to 3. I feel like the semi-limited list does absolutely fucking nothing for this game, but for some reason, they felt that Unicorn had to go to 2 copies, and people still played it because it's so fucking crazy. Ogre. Ogre actually doesn't really see play in the Kashtira deck, which is really funny because you thought it was hit in some way. They might play like one copy of it sometimes, but looking at the top 5 of your opponent's deck and just banishing a card, it's not really like real card advantage because like the cards were in the deck already. So like, yeah, you might be able to like manipulate the top of the deck to some extent, but compared to Fenrir, Fenrir's like actual removal, and Unicorn actually hits stuff out of the extra deck. So it's like, it's not real removal. It's very good in like common like sealed formats because it's just a 2800 special summon that's just like huge. But in the actual Kashtira deck, they may have only played like a single copy of this if they wanted like another name. So he's actually one of the worst Kashtiras, funny enough. So it's funny you thought he was hit in some capacity. Arise-Heart, totally fine card. Just another card just to help you get another level 7 and just trigger all your other stuff. So nothing wrong there. Shangri-Ira was never hit, if you can believe it. I don't know how this got away with it because this card is so fucking toxic and oppressive, but it never got hit. I don't really have much else to say. It was just, they apparently thought it was okay. They hit some other cards that we'll get to momentarily, and so they reined in the power level of this card, making it that it doesn't trigger as often, but even then, this card is still very fucking annoying, and so I don't know. I'm kind of surprised it didn't get hit, to be honest. Dimension Shifter never got hit. This card is one of the most toxic cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! Because basically, this card is either the worst card ever because you draw it past turn 1, or it's a turn skip against the decks that you played against. And how is that fun, right? It's like, oh, I open Dimension Shifter. I activate Dimension Shifter. Cool. I can't fucking play the game. Your turn, and then you die. Fun game, right? So people really hate this fucking card.
It is still in the game at full capacity.
Yep.
That is, I am.
People hate this fucking card. There are so many feature matches where someone just plays a Dimension Shifter and the game is just fucking over immediately. It is
what
so
is the play
infuriating.
percentage of this card, if you don't mind me asking? I'm like genuinely curious because this card legitimately looks like it's broken.
So right now, Zero, because one of the best decks in Yu-Gi-Oh is a deck that wants stuff to get banished. So
okay,
you would
fair.
never. It's weird because of how like divisive this card is. Like against the decks it's good against, it's like game-breakingly strong. But it's only really good against decks that play out of the graveyard. And yeah, you could argue that a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh decks play out of the graveyard. More decks care about it than others. And so, like I said, especially right now in the metagame, there's a deck called Malice that literally every card wants to get banished because it just special summons itself out for free if it gets banished. You would never play they're literally playing the opposite of Dimension Shifter. I will show you this. It's literally, it was in that photo I showed you. In that photo I showed you, it was the third most played card on ladder in Master Duel. Here, give this a quick read.
I have to scroll all the way down. Wait,
Sure.
do you want me to?
I just
read
sent
from
it.
Okay, yeah. You could set this card from your hand to your spell and trap zone as a
You don't have to
spell.
worry about that part. It's the next part.
Oh, during your opponent's turn, if this set card in the spell and trap zone is destroyed, set to the graveyard, special summon it.
It's the next part. That's what actually matters.
During your during your opponent's turn, quick effect, you contribute this card from your hand or face a field. Neither player can banish cards for the rest of the turn.
So now we're in the game where we're playing the opposite of Dimension Shifter. So instead of everything getting banished, you can't banish anything.
See, it's interesting, like, maybe in the context of what Tier Limit wanted to do, Dimensional Shifter seems really good.
Of course.
But then it's like, it's kind of nice that it's self-regulating in a sense and that they keep changing how decks win. So you never have to really worry about a card like this being too oppressive because it's not generically just good.
But similar to Shifter, Lancea is the same problem with the Malice deck, where if you have Lancea and it's turn 1 and you just say activate Lancea in like the standby phase, the deck just can't play. So it's like a turn skip.
Yeah, it's
the
stupid,
same
yeah.
problem, right? And so, to be fair, Lancea is a much older card. I think it's like 10 years old at this point. Shifter was printed like within the past couple years. But the problem is with these like floodgate type effects, and we've talked about this in depth before, is that it's like they're usually just so binary where it's like they either suck or they literally win you the game just by activating it. And like, is that fun? No, it's not. Exactly. You want to actually play a game. So it's like these cards are just very unhealthy, but at the same time, our power level of our game is so high that people think that these silver bullet type cards have to exist to sort of like regulate the game.
Well, see, that's exactly what I was going to say is like, I don't think inherently the design is good. Like, it's not a good design just to like, oh, I opened this card, fuck you, you lost. That's not a great design. But then like, maybe they need these cards as basically just horrible actors in your game in order for the game to actually get self-regulated. Because is it good? It's not good design. But if that's stopping every player from playing the best deck in the format because this card inherently exists and people get frustrated by it, then like maybe it's good for the game.
It's hard to say. So let's move on to Kashtiratheosis. This card's totally fine. You thought this card was hit? Totally fine. Never received a hit.
Damn it.
It's just a fine card. Like, this is just like how Yu-Gi-Oh is nowadays. I really don't have much else to say. Same thing for Birth. Birth's totally fine. Preparations is totally fine. Big Bang is totally fine. Like, usually these types of cards aren't even... They're either played at, like, max copies or you play one of it just because you have Kashtira Fenrir, Unicorn, and Ogre to search them. So you don't even have to play max copies of them anyway. So they kind of, like, self-regulate themselves in that regard. Like, the deck would only play one Big Bang. Maybe you'd play Preparations. A lot of the decks didn't. Birth and Theosis were probably played at, like, 2 to 3 copies each because they're very good. But they're also spell cards, so it's like that's part of the reason. Diablosis, the Mind Hacker. This is actually very interesting because Diablosis, if you can believe it, was actually a prize card for a very short period of time. So the only way to acquire this card was actually to like top or win a YCS for about a year. Then they eventually reprinted it like they usually do. But this card got banned. If you can believe it. This was one of the biggest enablers for, like, Shangri-Ira to, like, constantly keep triggering because it says if your card your opponent owns and possesses is banished face down while you control this, you banish cards from the top of their deck. So, like, you would banish something with Shangri-Ira, which would then trigger, like, Mind Hacker, and then would re-trigger Shangri-Ira because there's no hard once return on it. So created this... That's how you get to the point where you're locking out, like, all of their zones because you have so many redundant effects that are banishing that... and Mind Hacker just, like, enabled that. And also... I think from, like, the monetary side, they didn't want to hit the new cards, and Mind Hacker's kind of old, so they're like, let's hit Mind Hacker so we can keep selling our new set, right? So I think that's also part of the reason why Mind Hacker did get hit, but also it is a very toxic card for the deck. And then we get to, well, actually, Wraitsoth never got hit. I actually think it got limited in the OCG, which is random. They hit cards differently over there compared to us. But then we get to Kashtira Arise-Heart. So after the reign of Tearlament, and they hit the deck into oblivion, and the deck was nearly unplayable, even though people still tried to play it because people loved to Gamba. This deck became the boogeyman of the format, and it is all because of Arise-Heart specifically. Yes, the Shangri-Ira stuff and the Diablosis stuff is toxic and annoying. Arise-Heart is the worst offender out of all of them because the whole format warps around this card existing. Because you have to expect, if this is the best deck, that every single turn one, if you go second, they're going to end on an Arise-Heart, and now everything that goes to the graveyard is banished. So if you want to play the game in any capacity, you have to find a way to out Arise-Heart to be able to even like start doing stuff altogether. And then the mirror matches would also just get super toxic because then you're like all banishing shit and there's like 4 billion effects going off. Not to mention his third effect that says once per chain, each time a card is banished, attach one banished card to this card's material. That's every single time a card effect is activating, you have to go chain to Arise-Heart, and then you get to like attach something to a material. Chain to Arise-Heart, attaches material. Chain to Arise-Heart, attaches material. It got so fucking annoying that you had to do this action every single time your opponent activated a card. Or you activate a card for that matter.
Way. And
then not to mention, it also just, by detaching the materials that it gets for fucking free, it's just going to pop a card immediately and banish it face down. There's a very similar card to this like way back in the day that also got banned. This is just like that taken to the extreme. So the whole format centralized around, can your deck deal with Kashtira Arise-Heart? And Kashtira, in the ashes of Tearlament, ended up becoming the boogeyman of the format and being the best deck for several years. And people were begging for Arise-Heart to get banned because it made the game so unfun that it's like, can I out the Arise-Heart or not? Otherwise, I just fucking lose the game. And very toxic card. I doubt they will ever bring this card back because it is so fucking annoying to play against. So they banned it. And it is that basically was the nail in the coffin for Kashtira because without its best card, which is Arise-Heart, arguably, you can still do the zone locking shit, but Arise-Heart, arguably, funny enough, is way worse than that.
I thought that if they banned Shangri-Ira, that like this would be a lot harder to get out. That's what my logic was.
Sure, because it does have that effect. That makes sense. I would agree with you. But I will say by modern Yu-Gi-Oh standards, it's not that hard. I'm not joking. Oh my God, what the fuck is the card name? I have to show you one of the worst cards ever, and you're not going to believe that this card actually got played. This is a very old card, and they like made it. The art is inspired, and the effect is inspired by this card. So give this card a quick read.
The Ascended of Thunder. Special summon this card from your hand by paying 3,000 life points. If this card is summoned this way in its owner's control. Wait, sorry. This card is summoned this way in its owner's control is destroyed by an opponent's card. What a sentence to read. Gain 5,000 life points. If this card summoned this way in its owner's control is destroyed by an opponent's card. So you're losing 3,000 to gain 2,000 later on.
No, you're paying 3,000 for a free special summon of a level 7 to be able to make your rank 7s.
That's fair.
This card saw play. Yeah, at the because like life points don't matter until you run out, right? But it's like it's so funny that a card like this would see play just because they wanted more ways to special summon level 7s to like get their big guys.
When was this printed?
This card is 2017, 2018. So before Kashtira, because Kashtira is like 2022.
I was gonna say if this was like older Yu-Gi-Oh, this card seems like it would be disgusting. No, like this is some bullshit right there. I'm pretty sure, but
in certain decks.
Well, that was fun.
So, what do you think is worse now that you've seen Tearlament and Kashtira? Like, what do you think? Like, they're both just not okay, or like, I'm curious, kind of where you fall in that.
Well, so I guess the question would be then, and you would have to answer this: would this deck still see play if Tearlament was in its original form? Like, could you even compete with that deck if this was if Tearlament wasn't nerfed whatsoever?
If you go first and you set up a Riseheart, literally they can't play the game. Tearlament just folds to that unless they have a way to out a Riseheart. Kashtira just fucking folds to a Riseheart because it has the effect that any card that is sent to the graveyard is banished while he's out.
In other words, if both decks are in their full capacity, the game would literally come down to who goes first.
I wouldn't necessarily say that because there are still like hand traps and like interaction that can happen. If Kashtira went first, I will say it is probably heavily favored.
Oh, so you think Tearlaments would be not more powerful then?
I still think Tearlament is the stronger deck, but this deck was like basically tailor-made to counter this deck.
I guess you're right. I guess it is the counter to the deck. So
right.
like it would theoretically be
so
stronger.
theoretically
Yeah,
it's so like I think Tearlament is still the better deck of the two because there's no deck that is ever going to be as consistent as Tearlament and as powerful as Tearlament. But if you're making a custom archetype to counter Tearlament, this was probably the way to go about it. And it makes it for a not fun play pattern because it's like the way to beat the deck is to make it that they can't play the fucking game. But that also is a testament to how powerful Tearlament was, that they needed to print these cards that have these degenerate like floodgate style effects so that they just can't execute their game plan. And so whether or not you think that's a good thing is definitely up for debate, but Tearlament's still by far and away the better deck.
Do they still make archetypes to counter archetypes? Like, is that just like thing they do? Because I feel like at least like in Hearthstone, I feel like when they make archetypes, it's in a vacuum. Like it's not like this is going to counter this archetype. They might inherently or like indirectly do it because, you know, sometimes a combo deck just beats control decks, right? That's just what it is. But they're never going out of their way outright counter an archetype. So does Yu-Gi-Oh still do that like they did with this? Like I would hope so not. But
it's hard to say because I mean obviously they work ahead of time, right? Like they know what's coming out so they can prepare the next set of cards. Like they work, you know, 6-12 months. I don't know how far in advance, but obviously they do. I think it just really depends. I think sometimes they do. I think they probably knew Tearlament was really strong, which is why they made Kashtira as like a way to sort of, and then think about it from like a sales perspective, right? It's like, oh, you bought all the tier cards. They're all really good. Now buy these nice flashy Kashtira cards to counter the tier cards, right? So like from a sales perspective, it makes sense. But I wouldn't say it's like as obvious if there are like hard counter decks like this. I don't think they do this very often.
You're thinking they do it. Well, you don't have any proof about this. We're just talking
just
theoretically.
Speculation. Just speculation.
This is all theoretical, of course. This is all theoretical, of course. They design cards to make money.
Weird.
What the fuck?
No, they would never do that. So guys, that's going to wrap it up for another video. I really hope you all enjoyed. Let's go ahead and shout the patrons for all their continued support. So shouts to Shout1317, Tim00x3, MBT Play Madolce, Moto, Cameron L. Smith, The Synchro Guy, Pony Stark, Dan the Man Hoban, Little Fadeleaf, Draconic, Brian Dancer of Class 7, Dylan Rare Hunter, JW11860, Flannel Daddy, literally all of the guinea pigs, Cheeks McLapperty, Stolfin Amethyst, MBT canceled by community soon, canceled by all committees soon, canceled by all players soon, Wonder Waffle, MBT and Nimnims 1, Boxer Brief, Fueled Knight of Passion, Daniel Howe, Electrician of the Ice Barrier, Arco, and the Nova 129. Thank you again so much for watching, and we will see you next time.